Good morning, Gigi.
Morning.
Welcome to the Morning Muffin Show, your morning carbo load of real estate. Cha-cha. Oh, so how are you this morning?
I'm good. Good. This morning, busy.
Yeah.
So that's a plus.
I'm
TGIF.
Yeah, TGIF is right. I was laying in bed. My son has this week off of daycare, and I didn't want to wake him. He was up super late last night, and he's still sleeping. And so I sat there and I was working from my bed because I didn't want to wake anybody
This morning.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. Well, the crazy thing is if you go on your phone, the weather says smoke. Yeah, I'm like, wow.
It's so bad here. Somebody took a picture on Facebook and they're like, look at the moon. And I was like, that's the sun.
Wow. Yeah, it's insane. It's like almost, there's visibility, but it's kind of sad. I'm like, people should not be really outside.
No. And I'm supposed to go on this big camping trip, and it's like,
and you guys are going north.
It's right where the wildfires are. Actually, half of our camping site is like we're supposed to go hiking I can never say it, the Kiki Quebec Trail.
Quebec.
It's like Kiki, but K-E-K-E. I can't say it. I can't remember how it's spelled. That's the problem. If I could remember how it was spelled, then I could.
You can pronounce it.
And that trail is closed. There's a hiking trail. And so we're thinking we planned this trip for over a year. And so we're thinking of having to find a different place to go, and maybe more east than we normally do because the fires are west.
Yeah.
So
are you guys taking Max?
No, he goes to a hobby farm our friends have, and he gets to go play with dogs and cats and chickens and horses and all that.
On adventure. That's nice.
Yeah. So it's great. But today we are talking about pre-approval letters.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get into the meat and potatoes. I think from my understanding is a pre-approval letter versus a pre-qualification letter. So in my eyes, a pre-qual letter is we have your information. It's been through automatic underwriting, or that it's like what's the name of the system?
Like DU.
Yeah. So what's that stand for?
So DU it's just basically like either Freddie or Fannie. So there's LP and then there's DU. There's two kind of underwriting systems. That's like a desktop underwriter. And so you basically, you can run DU. Not you, but I can run DU based off of just an application being completed. And so you basically, whatever you put in, the system's going to kind of spit out an answer for you. Like, yep, we like the credit. We like the income. We like the ratios. This is approvable. It's going to say approve eligible, or it's going to say approve ineligible. If it's like approve ineligible, then there's some things you may be able to tweak. And then there's like ineligible where it's just not going to work right now.
Right. So you don't qualify, essentially.
Yeah.
So, and then in my head is a pre-approval letter. Then what you do is once they are eligible, right? So you take their documentation to verify what they actually put on that application. Like you said, like you'll verify their credits, their income, their bank statements, their tax statements, and then you'll add that into a different underwriting system. Or is it the same one?
So no, yep. So a lot of times what I do with my customers, just to try and like negate any problems, is put together a small needs list and then review those documents. And some LOs don't go that far. because they just kind of trust the customer and trust the system and things like that. I like to look at your pay stubs, especially with COVID and different things like that. People may have had lowered hours or just getting back to work full time. I like to kind of review pay stubs, review asset statements. Maybe you say you have, $10,000 in the bank. Let's look at how that $10,000 got in there. Was it a large deposit that we can source? People don't know that you can't use a large deposit all the time, or they're just thinking, oh, my mom gave me the money. Okay, then we need to find a bank statement. If it's conventional or FHA, we need to go about that a certain type of way, being able to source, those funds. And then you want to look at the W-2s. Are there 2 years consistent work history? Did they change jobs? Are they working 2 jobs? Those types of things. So I kind of like to get into the weeds on the front end, depending on the customer.
Yeah. Well, and you kind of, if they've been to multiple jobs, you've got more homework. It's really great when you have somebody who's been at their job for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And they can just go
3 years even.
And whatever you want. Yeah. Yeah, 3 years is a blessing right now because it's really easy to count on that same income, and they have access to everything online, and it's really great. So
every loan nowadays has something called a VOE, which is a verification of employment, and they do that in the beginning of the process and in the end, or right before you close. And sometimes they can do it 3 times I've seen it 3 times or a few times if something looks funny. A VOE is something that we can do up front before you get a pre-approval letter, So, but a prequal, if you want to kind of segue into that, is someone that's is when you've had your documents actually reviewed by like pre-underwriting, basically.
Yeah. So has there ever been a time when maybe you've gotten all the documentation and you're like, this looks really great. However, I know my underwriting and I know that they are going to do X, Y, Z. I'm just going to take this information and give it to them. Do you ever have it manually underwritten?
So yeah, I had one like that last month, which is super interesting. I had worked with her. I've been working with her for a little while. And so I collected all her documents. I know she had some like shorter worked hours during COVID and even after. And so I calculated income a certain way. She's been on her job 5 years. And then I sent it in to have the income calculated just so I could have a backup. And so I could have it in writing. I'm an underwriter. And so then, which is interesting because you can get a pre-underwritten file, send it in, and a whole nother underwriter get your file and say, I'm not seeing this that way. And so that happened. But being that I had something in writing and it wasn't just my word against that underwriter, I had a third underwriter look at it prior to sending it in for process. We were able to kind of find a happy medium and get her. She's in a house now.
Oh, good.
So, yeah. So if there's anything iffy, I definitely kind of try to err on the safe side and just have an underwriter pre-qualify that customer. It's usually an easier process. It's a smoother closing process because you kind of have some of those things out of the way.
Yeah, definitely. I know it's popular for a lot of companies nowadays to do a loan guarantee. Mm-hmm. Does your company ever do any of those? And what are they?
So, yeah, SunWest does not, but I know a lot of companies do, which is great. I think that's amazing because that's like, you think about everybody who's putting skin in the game, right? You say like, me as a buyer, I'm giving earnest money. I'm giving my time as far as collecting all these documents, giving them to you. And if I send them in for a pre-approval, then that means that I'm resting on that. And so some companies will say, like, if we pre-approve your file and aren't able to close you on time, we'll guarantee to give you set amount of money, or we'll for closing costs. Or so those are like loan guarantees. Like, we'll close your loan on time based on our word.
Wow, that's awesome. And so what part of the process does that come into? Is that before they find a property or after they find a property?
So it really depends. Like, some companies do it like if you've had a file pre-underwritten, not just pre-qualified, should I say, then that would be a part of that process and that guarantee that once you find a property, we'll close you within a certain amount of time based on our guarantee, and or else, we will give gift to you, or, this is our word, basically. So that, I think that's amazing, honestly.
That is awesome. Oh, I got a visitor. Somebody awake. Oh, he's crawling.
The little guy. I'm without kids, actually, which is kind of like, I send my kids away every summer, and this is the first time where I'm like, what am I doing? Because they're getting older and they're like fun. It's like, do you guys want to do this or do you guys want to do that? And now I'm like, I have no playmates.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Gigi forgot to get a life.
I know. I thought I had one before.
That sounded a lot less cold in my head. I'm sorry, that sounded so.
It's so true. And I love yoga. I love this and that. And then I used to always be like, I can't find time to do this. And now I'm like, okay, I need to get some business.
Yeah. So, and you and I still have yet to meet. It's been rough with Max here. I've been working.
Oh yeah, this was
5 a.m.
Yep.
The luxury of having him away for a week would be nice. I was actually looking at my office today. You guys only get to see this one corner, but it's like littered with stuff. Like my desk. I should show you this.
That's like the genius complex, right? Where if you have a messy desk, you're erring on the side of a genius.
Oh, I think so. I'm very creative. I paint and I do a lot of art and stuff, but we're segueing again. So pre-approval letters, I, as a real estate agent, will not take somebody to look at a house without a pre-approval letter. Like I won't even sign a buyer's contract with them usually without them getting pre-approved, because they could put in an application and they might have more work to do, and which is fine, but I don't want to hold them in a contract or bother them. I could coach them and whatnot. There's a lot of agents that won't even sign them in a contract until the time they find a property. So everybody does different. I tend to just check in with them, and when they're ready, then we will.
Well, there's a lot of learning, I think, that goes on during the pre-approval process. I think it's super important that, for me, I feel like it's really important if you're not getting anything out of this, like even simple things, like if you're not able to understand your LE, let's go over that, your loan estimate. If you're not able to understand what the process looks like, what you need to get pre-qualified, I feel like I'm not doing something right. And I don't want to be the only one involved. So.
Yes. Well, and there is a lot of coaching, so much coaching sometimes. And it can take a while, and it takes a lot of understanding and a lot of different people. I always try to separate us though. And I'm like, I'm the house person. She's the money person.
Yeah.
Like I try to very much like, oh, that is a really great question for your loan officer.
Yes.
Do you need support, or do you need find a way to ask this for more clarification? Like I will be happy to help you address your concerns or your questions or your confusion. But ultimately, I leave all the answers to you.
When it comes to the money. Well, I had someone yesterday, we did an application, pre-approval, and he kept wanting to be at that $300,000 number. He's like, those are the houses I'd like. So we get into, I can get you there if you pay this down and this credit is great. But then I asked the question, where are you comfortable paying? What are you comfortable paying? Because we can get you into a $300,000 house, but what are you comfortable paying every month? Because that's
you don't need to be house poor.
Right. And so he was like, $1,200. And that's like the average answer. I only pay $300. And so
like a $200,000 house.
There you go. And I said, well, that's more, that looks like this. And so that's something I would throw back to an agent. Like, can you show him what these houses look like, and where do we fall in the middle?
Sorry, I've got a little bit of a distraction. It's true though. So I get clients that are mad at me a lot because I will set their search to what they want to pay. And they're like, well, why didn't you send me this house? And I'm like, oh, well, because your payment would be here. Yep. And I thought that you weren't comfortable paying that. I actually, just so you know, I had to break ties with a client recently because I don't bend. My rules are, like real estate agents have a bad reputation because when something goes wrong with the house, we're like the first person they think of and the first person they want to blame, right?
Our name goes on
a shit house.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm trying, so I try to protect myself from any kind of, like, this is what you can afford. I want you to live your fullest life. I want you to achieve your dreams. And if something goes wrong, I want you to be able to afford to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I see the bigger picture. And I actually had one person tell me it wasn't fun to look at houses with me because sometimes I reminded them of like some of the repairs that were going to be coming down the road, like, oh, well, this furnace is, 15 years old, average life is 30. So in 15 years, you'll have to fix it, or, so it's X amount of money. And or like the water heater is my favorite because it's on average like 10 to 12 years. And depending upon where it's at, I mean, you could have to replace it right away.
Right away. And that's happened to one of my customers. They literally had to replace a water heater. And it's like, I always let people know, like, it's the furthest thing from renting. Like, you are responsible. Like, you can rent. And the beautiful thing about renting is, you can call somebody. Mm-hmm. And it's not your responsibility. But the other side of it is kind of getting back to, like, why do you want to own? And I know we're talking about pre-approvals, but I think in that pre-approval process, that's a big part of that conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. So, next week we're taking a break. I've been airing a lot of our past episodes lately because I know with vacations and summer and enjoying, I just like to keep everybody top of mind. Hold on. There's still something in here. I know there's something in there. But I have to show you first. Oh, okay.
I think you need to say hey.
I know. I'm just going to end this. I should show you guys. He's got my flute out.
Oh, my daughter took her flute down to Georgia with her because her big cousin knows how to play a flute really well. And she's like, I'm going to get some lessons, but she hated going to flute class. And I'm like, what? It doesn't add up. But stick with.
Yeah, I know. Once upon a time, I tried to join a community band and I realized how rusty I was because there's some really good people out there.
Yeah.
So anyway, you guys enjoy yourself. Enjoy the weekend. Try to, I know face masks aren't popular anymore, but with the smoke, maybe we'll want to rethink that a little bit.
Yep. I've been back on the mask, so wear your mask.
Yeah. All right, you guys. See you later. Bye now.